Good day, everyone, and welcome to Conversations on Entrepreneur under the Steelpan Business Entrepreneurship Series of MusicTT, celebrated in Trinidad and Tobago under the Global Entrepreneurship Week. We will be chatting every day for this week with local and international music and creative Steelpan business professionals, learning more about their roles, discussing trends, COVID, entrepreneurship, and anything else in between. My name is Akua Leith, and I will be your host. Joining me today is Ms. Josanne Francis. Josanne is originally from Trinidad and Tobago and is an internationally known stage-and performer and music educator. Josanne has performed at venues including Kennedy Center and Carnegie Hall and has appeared as a guest artist at festivals and universities across the US, including Samuel Conservatory of Music, Puerto Rico, and the Carmore Jazz Festival in New York. Josanne was one of the 6 artists in residence at Strathmore for the 2017-2018 season. She currently serves as the Executive Director of the Cultural Academy for Excellence, runs her very own educational Steelpan program, Steel Biz LLC, and conducts teach us training for Maryland Center for Creative Arts. Guys, let's welcome Ms. Josanne Francis.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm excellent. As you can, I'm wearing something if it looks familiar to you.
It looks very familiar. I love it.
Right. Actually, guys, this is one of Josanne branded merchandisers for her Steel on Wheels business. Right. So, Josanne, I'm glad to have you with us today, and let's have a chat on what you do and so forth. So let's start off by getting a little bit about yourself in terms of where the music started from that age 8. What happened around that time that prepared you for what you are today.
Well, I growing up in Trinidad, I was always seeing Pan on TV, especially during carnival time with Panorama, and I would always be so intrigued and interested in it because I would see the musicians dancing and having a good time, and the music was just so captivating. So when I was about 9, 8, well, 8, 8 and a half, 9, there was an ad in the newspaper for some beginners lessons at Meritones in Digo Martin, because I grew up in Digo Martin. And so my sister and I took the classes. It was about 6 weeks every Saturday. And I just immediately took a liking to it because I already had liked it from seeing it on TV. Prior to that, I didn't really have much any formal music education. A little bit of recorder in first year, second year, but we know how that goes. Then after I took the course, I didn't have a pan at home, and while I was in primary school at Bryn Mawr Preparatory in Pitti Valley, I think it was on Fridays, I used to have to stay back and wait because my brother would be taking art lessons, and then there was this lady who would be there giving lessons to another student on pan. So I think she probably saw me lurking around, and eventually I enrolled myself without telling my parents. And this lady turned out to be Miss Bacchus Xavier.
Wow.
And so when it came time to actually pay for the lesson, that is when my parents find out. And I guess they worked out something, but I learned from her for a little bit, and then also at that school, that was the first time I had like formal music training because Mrs. Jocelyn Seeley would come to the school every Wednesday and do a little bit of music theory with us. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. She would do a little bit of music theory with us, and we'd be singing songs. So that is where my music education really started, as in terms of like a formal music education. And then when I got into St. Joseph's Convent, my music teacher there was Mrs. Patrice Cox-Neves, and I admired her so much as a music teacher because at that point I was in love with music, and the way she taught made me love it even more. and not just love playing music, not just love music theory, but kind of get me interested in teaching music. So when I became a member of Starlift Steel Orchestra, um, we it was myself, Barry Manette, Mrs. Patricia Sneeves, and a couple others. We started the junior steel band at Starlift, and that's when I first got like my very first teaching experience, teaching music theory and pan to the younger members in the junior band. And just over my time being with Miss Neves at St. Joseph Convent and being in Starlet, I decided, yes, this is what I want to do. This
Right.
is what I want to do. So after Form 5, I told my mother, I'm going to UV. I don't want to go in Form 6. Well, she straightened me out real quick. So I did Form 6, and then afterwards, I mean, I was appreciative of that because it gave me some more time to really think about what I wanted to do and also look at my options in terms of programs of study. And through my interaction with Ray Holman, who was the arranger of Starlift at that time, I got to learn about a lot of the other universities in the US that have steel bands, really good steel bands, and where I could study music education, because that's what I wanted to do, music education, not just performance, not just a certificate in music. I really wanted to do music education. So I had to leave Trinidad to do that. And
Yes.
I that was it. That was it right there. Then I went to University of Southern Mississippi. That's where I did my bachelor's degree in music education with percussion as my instrument, because you can't use steel pan as your main instrument.
Right.
And soon after that, immediately after that, I went to Northern Illinois University where I got my master's, and that's where I had the honor of studying under Liam Teague and Cliff Alexis, and it's been a really good road. I wouldn't say it's been a smooth road.
Right.
Um, there have been challenges, but you know, through dedication and I like to say good karma, I I made it through, and right now I'm in Maryland, really close to Washington D.C., where I direct Cafe, Cultural Academy for Excellence, and my own program, Steel on Wheels. I hope
Correct.
I answered your question. I think I did, plus more.
Definitely did. Definitely did. So my whole point of that question was to show the journey of you becoming this individual. So I will get to that. But in terms of timelines, how many years was that? How many years it took you from St. Joseph Convent, actually meeting this lady and more enrolling yourself, then telling mom, you get to St. Joseph Convent, you start your own junior group in Starlift. You left to go to Southern Mississippi, you were there at NIU, and now you're serving at Cafe. That's not 2 years. What's the time?
It's let's say that's from 1998
Wow.
until 2020, so that's a solid 22 years
Yes.
to where I am, and nothing was none of my experiences were irrelevant. Everything had a purpose in getting me where I am right now and shaping me how I am right now and paving the way of what's going to happen next.
Correct. Good. So, with that being said, today you now serve as the director of Cafe. Can you tell us a little bit about that post?
Well, just to give you all a little bit background of Cafe, it's not a restaurant. It's the acronym for Cultural Academy for Excellence. It is a nonprofit arts and education organization based in Prince George's County, Maryland, that has been around for about 24, 25 years. And the mission of the organization is to use the arts as a catalyst to develop the passion and discipline for learning, leadership, and academic achievement in youth. So there's the main thing that is used for the arts is the steel pan. And I tell you, that is the main thing that draws the students to cafe. And that is what I actually use as leverage when they don't want to act right in their other classes.
Right.
um, so I've been with cafe for about 6 years now. When I graduated from Northern Illinois University, I was blessed to even have the opportunity to apply for a full-time steelpan job
Right.
as the artistic coordinator at cafe. Soon after that, I became the artistic director. And just recently, a few months ago, I was appointed the executive director of the
Right.
organization. So now I'm running everything, everything, not just the music. Um, and as executive director, I get to supervise the art staff and the non-art staff as well.
Yeah.
Over the years, we've had a lot of folks grace us with their presence, such as you, Mr. Akua Leith.
Thank you.
You came and spent a few weeks with us in 2016,
It's 15, 2000.
2015. And then we had Aviel Canterbury. He was with us for 2 years while he did his master's at George Mason University. And who else do we? Right now we have Dominic Lewis. He's from Barbados, and also LJ Brathwaite from St. Thomas. Both of them are studying with Victor Provost at George Mason University. So we have in cafe, in terms of steel bands, we have an elementary steel band called Rhythm Starters. We have a high school steel band called Positive Vibrations Youth Steel Orchestra. And we have a community steel band called Cafe United, an adult ensemble called Pantones. And we do classes throughout the year where folks can come in and take like a 6 week or 4 week class in learning how to play steel pan.
Yes. So now that I know you would have, as you said, you had a journey in cafe as well. So you definitely have to take care of the everyday runnings, and that costs. That's definitely something that you need to have funding. You need to have paid gigs. How do you manage that aspect of cafe?
But when I took when I took the position of executive director, not too long after, I went and I asked Mrs. Green. So Miss Lorna Green, she's the founder of Cafe. She founded Cafe in 1996, and she is currently the CEO. So I went to her and I said, Miss Green, you was doing all this.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Cafe is a non-profit organization. We rely heavily on grants and donations from others. So I've gotten my share of grant writing.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite thing to do, but in applying for grants, I also got into some of these grantors as a panelist. So me serving as a panelist, let's say for example with the Maryland State Arts Council,
Right.
who would be a grantor for Starlift, get not Starlift, Cafe, Starlift on my mind. I
You have big hopes, so definitely eventually you get back to fire.
but serving as a panelist was like some professional development for me because I got to be on the other side of the grant process. So now I really see what they're looking for. And now that I could come back out on the other end and apply it with Cafe so that we
Right.
can have more success with writing grants. Yeah.
So good to writing and all that. As I know I'm talking about this hat that you wear, but there are other two. I just want to do one more things in terms of cafe. You know that cafe has passed on you to the executive directorship. What are some plans you have for the future? Maybe to take cafe to another level, or continue what they have in terms of the, because I know they are functioning pretty well right now. But what are some exciting things that maybe could be coming in the near future?
Well, I don't want to let any cats out of the bag, but over my years of being with Cafe, I've seen the organization grow and kind of broaden its offerings. And I definitely know that cafe has the potential to expand
Yes.
and do even more. So with a lot of the grants, they're asking for specific things.
Yeah.
It is my hope that I can get cafe out of the position where we are constantly applying for grants here, grants there, grants everywhere, where we can function without relying so
Yeah.
heavily on small grants. Um, we've graduated a lot of students, and the thing is, a lot of times we get students coming in when they are 6 years old because that's the earliest we take them. Five maybe,
Maybe.
but six primarily. And I've noticed that when these kids come in at 6, they don't leave until they are 18 and they graduate in high school. And we say,
Wow.
okay, you have to go now. Go
Wow.
off to college, go off to work. And that says a lot.
Yes.
It says a lot. Um, Apart from the artistic portion that the students get, they get a lot of other stuff like they get life skills, they get the academic piece,
Right.
they get to develop leadership skills. And these students now they come in the afternoon. If they're in elementary school, they come in the afternoon, and on Saturday, the high school students come. They practice twice a week, two
Right.
evenings during the week, and then on Saturday they're there all day. Why not come all day every day, Monday to Friday all day? Just saying. Um, but those are some of the plans that I have for cafe, and I know cafe has like the we've we've had the experience enough to make something like that work.
Yes.
And I've heard too many times that cafe is the best kept secret in DC.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That is a compliment, but we should not be a secret.
Correct.
So my plan is to get cafe out there where it's a household name. So when somebody says cafe, they're not thinking about the cafe
Okay.
where they go and get coffee. They're
Correct.
thinking about the Cultural Academy for Excellence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, 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 good. Goals there. Now, I mean, there's one more question. These students a scholarship? Do they get scholarship to come to cafe? What's the process of getting persons into the organization?
Mhm. So we do have we charge tuition for the students to be a part of cafe.
Right.
The tuition is very very minimal when you compare it to what they're actually getting out of it. For families with more than one child who is in cafe, we do offer sibling discounts so
Right.
that they are not paying the full tuition times
Right.
2 or times 3, because we've had families with 4 kids enroll in cafe all at the same time.
Wow.
And I can imagine what what kind of economic hardship that is for
Right.
them. And so I mean, we're aware of that, and we're like a family organization. So when one is suffering, we all kind of gather around to help, because at the end of the day, it's about the kids, right? And especially for the after school, if the parents, even if with the rate that we have and they are unable to afford it, we give them scholarships. They have scholarships.
Right.
We might ask the parent to volunteer a certain amount of hours, or we might actually have a donor sponsor that child so that they can reap the benefits of being in cafe. Because we don't want to turn away any child,
Correct.
and we don't want, after a child has like been in cafe for, even if it's one day and experience cafe, we don't want to say, oh, you can't pay, oops, sorry, you can't come.
Correct.
We will work with the family, we would work with the cafe family, and whatever contacts we have that we have made over the years, we would work together to make sure that that child can reap the benefits, because if they love it, they're learning. Why punish the child?
Correct. Excellent. Excellent. So that's Josanne, guys. Josanne, the artistic, or I should say, the director.
Executive director.
Introduce you guys to Josanne, the business owner. That exciting project you launched last year. It was covered on TV6 News and all those fancy things. I got my jersey from that launch. So tell us about that. Steel on Wheels. What was the whole idea behind that, and how has it been going?
Steel on wheels. All right. So it goes back to when I first moved to Maryland to work with Cafe.
Right.
I would take the students to all these different schools, like including some like really, really high profile schools. We would do workshops, we would do performances, and every single time the teachers were like, "Oh, I want this for my students." And of course, we get excited. I get excited. So I put a plan together and they would be part of that plan. And then when it came to the point where they had to buy instruments, it was like, oh, wait, hold up. What you talking about? So after that happened, year after year after year after year after year, I said, okay, people want pan. They just don't have the money to make that initial investment of buying instruments. And even if they do have the money, they're a little bit skeptical about it because they don't know what it would actually look like when it's being implemented at their school.
Correct.
So I was thinking, what if? What if they had the instruments and they didn't have to pay to buy instruments? What if they just had to rent the instruments for a week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, however long? What if I can get them a qualified steel pan teaching artist? Because that was another issue too. Because if I set up a program at a school, I'm preoccupied with cafe and everything else. I can't stay there and be there every day. So what if the instruments didn't need to be purchased and they could just rent them for a reasonable fee? What if uh, I provide them with a qualified teaching artist, like a really qualified steel pan teaching artist? What if I provide them with all the lesson plans that they need? What if the only thing they have to give me is the space to store the instruments, the space for the students to practice, and the students to work with, and of
Wow.
course, a fee for the artist time? So that is what Steel on Wheels is. It's creating opportunities for students to engage with steel band
Right.
in a way that is authentic
Mhm.
and culturally responsive because it, the type of music that they would play could be familiar to them.
Right.
And it's really, really important for students to see themselves
Correct.
and others being represented in the music that they play when they're at school.
Right.
So with Steel on Wheels, my two primary goals are to create opportunities for students to learn steel pan without the school having that burden of that huge financial investment.
Right.
And two, to create opportunities for steel pan educators to
Wow.
engage with students. Because you have a lot of really good steel pan educators around.
Right.
They're studying in the schools, they're like in the universities, they're playing in steel bands. But there isn't as many opportunities for them to actually engage in with schools in like a public school setting, like during the day, as
Right.
opposed to like an extracurricular that is after school, which is totally fine too. So and in doing that, there's opportunities created for the Stephen educators, there's opportunities created for the students, there's opportunities created for the school, and it is not really to discourage them from buying instruments. It
Just
kind of
and more that justifies it at a point as well.
exactly. It gives them more reason to buy instruments.
Yeah.
And at the end of every residency, because I will call it a residency, at the end of every residency, they if they are interested in starting their own steel band, they would receive resources from Steel on Wheels on where they can purchase instruments, where they can purchase materials, and in addition to that, like what steps they can take. So if they can't buy a whole steel band next week, if they could only afford to buy, let's say, instruments for a quartet, like what instruments they should buy, And then with each year, what are the instruments they should be adding to that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Really exciting. As you said residency. Walk me through that. Is it a 1 week interaction, a 2 week interaction, a 2 days? How do you outfit that residency?
So prior to entering the school to start, discussions will be had with the school principal and the main classroom teacher, which is likely going to be the band director or whatever music teacher they have. And we would go over what their goals are, what their specific goals are for including Steelpan at their school, and what Steel and Wheels can do. So that may range from 1 week to 11 weeks. So
Wow.
my shortest residency so far has been 2 weeks,
Right.
and my longest residency, which was interrupted by COVID, um, would
Get to
have
that.
been would have been 11 weeks, and that was actually my biggest, Steel and Wheels' biggest residency. It was
Wow.
at the Boys and Girls High School in Brooklyn, New York, and it was part of the Paul Simon Music Fellows program. And the teaching artist that Steel and Wheels had there was Mr. Earl Brooks Jr. And, I was there to observe day one and day two. I was very, very impressed by the work and the rapport that Mr. Brooks had already developed with those students in such a short space of time. And I know he was disappointed with COVID. I mean, as we all were. So that interrupted it. So hopefully, when schools open back up, we can start that back up and actually get the program going through.
Okay. So I know we spoke about it. You are now kind of cushioning the schools from getting that upfront expense. But still on wheels, I mean, you guys have to own your instruments or at least have access to instruments. How does that work? And even with that being said, in a district like Maryland, you may have 2 or 3 schools wanting to have steel and wheels. Is the program that big now, or are you planning to expand to that? Give us a little idea of what's happening in terms of that.
So I do plan to expand, but I'll tell you how it operates now.
Right.
Through my relationship with Cafe,
Right.
but Steel and Wheels has had access to a lot of instruments. The space that Cafe is in right now cannot even hold all the instruments that Cafe has. And it's been a really great partnership with Cafe because that's something that Cafe was not offering before. And now Steel and Wheels is partnering with Cafe so that we can offer that type of program in the schools during the day. Because most of what Cafe does is after school or on the weekend.
Yes.
So the instruments that I use, if it's in the DC metropolitan area, they come from Cafe. However, let's say for example, when Steel and Wheels went to New York, it made no sense to haul instruments from Maryland to New York.
Right.
So here is another opportunity that I wanted to create for the local steel bands.
Wow.
So these bands typically use the majority of the instruments that they use it once a year for
Yes.
panorama. Other than that, the instruments are in somebody's basement.
Wow.
So when I took when Steel on Wheels went to New York, we actually partnered with a local steel band
Mm.
in New York and rented the instruments from them so that the steel band was able to make some money as well. And also, we never made it to the end, but at the end, the instruments would be tuned before being returned to the steel band. And those students that participated in the program, they would be like, I want to keep playing pan. They would be referred to that steel band.
Wow. These things just excite me because I mean, I'm hearing it for the first time and it's like you have opened, I mean, I'm saying this here, I'm planting the seed, a franchise of Steel on Wheels by just having partnerships and relationships.
That's what it comes down to.
Exactly. I mean, you see what work with Cafe, you built a relationship there, you partner with them, you want to take it to New York. Cafe can't be in Maryland and partners in New York, but there are steel bands operating in New York. I mean, this could go to Japan, this could come to Trinidad, this could go to Antigua, this could go anywhere around the world.
Exactly, exactly. So what I do, I mean, I can't say what I did or what I will do, is what I'm doing all the time. I'm
Yes.
always networking. Um, I'm I've built and I'm continuing to build um my network of teaching artists, so that
Yeah.
when somebody in somewhere Ohio say
I know
say
that.
you know that place, right?
Yes.
When somebody in Ohio say they want Steel on Wheels to do a 3-week residency at their school, I'm not busting my brain to try to figure out how I get in parents to Ohio or how I go and find somebody. I already have a teaching artist there. I already have a steel band within reasonable distance that I can work with to get the instruments as well.
Wow, I applaud you for that. I really, really do. Guys, when at the end of this, I'll pull a question to this young lady that will blow your mind. But I want to go to another hat that she's wearing. Josanne, the performer.
Yeah.
Josanne, the performer in two aspects: the classical performer and also Josanne, the jazz performer, which we know is two totally different aspects in terms of performing. Tell us about that. I know you performed in Kennedy Center, you were resident at
Strathmore.
Strathmore, you perform at Carnegie Hall, you perform at different jazz groups in Puerto Rico. I mean, tell us about that. How that has been going.
It's been going great. I If you follow my social media, you would see that I just last night posted a save the date for the Port-au-Prince International Jazz Festival that's happening in January, where my septet will be performing. Of course, COVID has like flipped everything inside out, upside down. But I have been blessed to still have gigs. I've played in countless driveways as a soloist and with my trio. Um, but yes, there's the classical side, and then there's the more contemporary style. I I don't ever say that I'm a jazz artist because I honestly I don't speak that language in my music. That's not I don't have a deep knowledge of that language. But the music that I play when I'm playing like with my trio or my septet is influenced by jazz, influenced by calypso, influenced by Hindustani music, influenced by funk. So I try to draw influences from all the different experiences that I have musically, whether it be from doing research, listening, or attending other musical events, or interacting with other musicians. Um, and I would say that I've had way more um, contemporary and jazz style gigs than the classical gigs. But I love both. I love both, and I don't think I've ever considered myself being like at a crossroads of okay, which one am I going to do? Both have their purpose,
Right.
and I enjoy doing both. And if you've seen my duo with Chow Tian, I love to engage in collaborations with musicians from other cultures,
Right.
and I've I just love experiencing music in different ways as a performer. Um, Thinking of COVID, I've had to this year I've had to play way more solo gigs than I wanted to,
Wow.
because you know folks may not be comfortable being next to each other in a gig. I mean, it's kind of a little bit better now. Um, But through the relationships and partnerships that I've had in the past, I've been able to do like online shows for like the Kennedy Center and for Strathmore and for the Silver Spring Town Center here in Maryland.
Right.
As far as classical, I had a huge classical gig that I was looking forward to, and it was scheduled in March in 2021, and it has since been postponed to 2022.
Okay.
I'm just hoping that I can still perform that piece in
Right.
2022. And that was actually going to be a really special performance because I was scheduled to play the entire um, all movements of Jan Bach's Steel Pan Concerto.
Yes.
And what was really special about it is that he was going to be the guest artist with me in that performance um with the Philharmonic Orchestra in Detroit, Michigan. And so it's now going to be a way more emotional experience because
Really.
he just passed away a couple weeks ago.
Rest his soul.
So but the classical gigs, they are there. The more contemporary gigs are there more regularly than the classical ones. But I enjoy both. I love both.
Right. Seeing that it keeps coming up, let's touch on that. What the COVID has really done, that whole locking down of the borders and closing up of more or less all the performance spaces. What that did for all three elements, for cafe, what that did for steel on wheels, and what has that done for your contemporary gigs.
Hmm. So I'll start with Steel on Wheels because it's the short explanation of what happened. COVID literally put Steel on Wheels at a standstill
Right.
because a lot of what Steel on Wheels does requires in-person contact and in schools, educational institutions, and most educational institutions have been shut down since not shut down, but closed for in-person interaction since March.
Right.
However, I was still able to work with the Maryland State Department of Education and conduct training sessions
Right.
for teachers on how they can use the steel pan, as in the digital app on their tablets, because all the students have devices, how they can use that in their instruction. So we're just waiting for it to ease up a little bit so we can get back into doing more stuff, and also to get these steel pan educators back, doing doing what they do.
Right.
For me as a performer, I couldn't tell you how much thousands of dollars I lost due to gig cancellations. And my first COVID canceled gig was actually before the pandemic was declared. Back in February, my duo Parallel Intersections, which is the duo with Chao Tian, we were scheduled to play at the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. for the Chinese New Year.
Right.
And at that time, things were already hot in China. And they said, you know what? Let's not do this. Let's postpone it. But I think that was more of a let's cancel it because soon after that, the pandemic was declared.
Yes.
Um, so that was my first that was my first canceled gig due to COVID. Um, I've had many canceled gigs, many canceled residencies, many canceled lessons. Uh, a few months ago, I did the calculation. It was a ridiculous amount of money that I lost,
Wow.
but I still feel grateful that I was still able to do stuff online and still play in people's driveways.
Right.
Um, and it gave me the opportunity to engage with some folks who I otherwise would not have engaged with because with being online, you could reach anybody in the world, as
Correct.
opposed to when you're in person, it's really limited to the people who can physically get there.
Right.
So I was grateful for that. As far as cafe, so Friday the 13th of March. I remembered because it was Friday the 13th. That was the that was the official last day of school here in Prince George's County, Maryland, and we had Saturday Academy the day after. I
Right.
allowed my older students, my advanced students, to take instruments home so they can practice. And at that point, we had no idea. I mean, we still have no idea how long this is going to last. The kids couldn't come to us, and it took us we the like the executive administrative team. We said, okay, we need to figure out what's happening here,
Right.
and the music was not the number one concern. The number one concern was the families eating. A lot of the students, almost all of our students, depend on being on schools being open and cafe being open for 3 meals for the day. They go in
Wow.
school, they get breakfast. While they're at school, they get lunch. When they come to cafe in the evening, they get dinner.
Gotcha.
So now that's 3 meals per day they were getting that they're no longer getting.
Wow.
So we worked together and developed a food pantry where they can come and shop for free. We accepted a lot of donations from the other families in cafe and other community organizations, and then we also gave out about 300 bag meals per week. So
Right.
once we got in the kind of got in the rhythm of doing that, we said, okay, they're fed. Now we got to get them educated.
Right. Yeah.
So we went online. So we did our pilot of going online, which was successful, given the all the circumstances. But then there was also the issue of the digital divide because many students didn't have devices, and when they did get devices from the schools, they didn't have internet access. And then when they did get the internet access with the hotspot, they weren't strong enough for online learning. So it's and it's I mean, my heart goes out to all the school administrators because there's so much that they're having to deal with to try to ensure that the students are getting educated. But we're working alongside them. We're working really, really closely with them. We're working really closely with the community school coordinators, and we are actually providing some after school online tutoring so that we
Right.
can help those students who aren't, either they're not doing so well with online learning or it's presented in a way that is not uh, best for them to learn. So that is what we're doing in terms of that. A couple months ago, we started back rehearsing with the advanced steel band outside.
Right.
So we would have a location, announce the location, the day, the time. The students come with their instruments, except the bass. We try to have the bass there. They come with their instruments, all their materials. We take their temperature. They have to remain masked up and set
Right.
up at a distance. And that's how we've been rehearsing. But it's getting cold.
I'm good. I'm going to say
It's
that.
getting cold. It's getting cold. So I've been meeting with different folks from different organizations and different venues to try to find something that would work safely for us to rehearse indoors in a well ventilated area.
Okay. Well, good stuff. It definitely it's pushing you to think and to come up with new ways to keep things going on all three aspects.
Definitely.
So this question is definitely which agency are you tied into? How are you managing all of this? What systems are you using? Tell the guests how do you get through those three important hats that you wear and execute it at that high level of professionalism and excellence? Exactly.
My planner. I
Yeah.
mean, planning and trying to manage time and splitting it up in these areas. And there's another thing that I'm involved in. I'm in school, so um, it's a lot of balancing going on, but I have support. So cafe is not just me. I have the support of many volunteers. I have the support of Mrs. Green. I have the support of Mr. Green. I have the support of the board of directors. So it's not just me managing and doing everything. I can delegate and I could lean on others when, like, if I get stuck or if something is just too much for me to handle, I can easily delegate to someone else. So I have the support.
Right.
But in all that, sometimes I forget to take time for self care. That's something I've been trying to work on more now,
Right.
especially with all the different hats that I wear. Um, but yeah, I have support, and I try to keep everything in my planner that actually write into, and then also on my phone.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's definitely needed. I mean, support for sure. Also, a very organized schedule. What would you say to someone, a student who's at university level, now coming up, basically carrying the same journey that you carried? What would you say to them who's looking to now come into this world of work around the steel pan, around education, around performance? What would you say to individuals pertaining to that?
Just anything. Let's see. One thing I would say is just do it.
Right.
If you have an idea for a project, write it down. And if you have the resources to do it, just do it. Because here's the thing, you're not the only person who's going to think about it.
Right.
And you don't want to spend time just like harboring on this idea that you have. And then all of a sudden you see it on Facebook being executed by somebody else.
Right.
So if you have an idea, just do it. And two, another thing I would say is to formalize your ideas, formalize things that you're doing as a performer. Formalize yourself as a business because that's what it is. It's a business.
Right.
And I say formalize it for, for tax purposes and all that, but also to create separation from yourself, your personal and your business. Because as an entrepreneur and as a self-employed person, we're always working. And I mean you can't really get away from it, but having your business formalized will start to create some separation for you. Separate your finances. When you play a gig, don't let them pay you, let them pay your business, which
Right.
is you, the performer. Let them pay your business. Have a separate account for that. Then you can pay yourself. And don't pay yourself all of it so that you can
Right.
actually grow your business. I would say that. And let me see what else. And on the same line of formalizing, if you're formalizing something that is not performance based, let's say you have an idea for a business that is based around steel pan, formalize it in terms of creating a business plan as well.
Yeah.
It does not cost you to create a business plan. And there are so many resources online where you can find templates that you can literally copy, just paste your information into it. Create a business plan, create a strategic plan, because you're not only operating for the now, you have goals in the next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. Create a business plan so that when the opportunity arises for you to access funding, you can say, here's my business plan. And you're not scrambling to try to put something together. So
Right.
just do it, formalize it. Those are the two things, and create separation.
That's excellent point. I think you said it there in a nutshell. You had a desire. You had a desire to do it. You were definitely developing a skill. You went to school, you had experience, you were talking to the professionals who would have known what you wanted to know. So fast you developed a skill and then you had faith. You definitely kept going until you realized what you were set out to. And so within all that, the brand, the business Josanne Francis now exists outside of Josanne Francis, the individual. So that's important points you definitely laid there, especially that point of paying yourself from your business. Yes, you are the sole trader, or yes, you might be the solo or the individual doing the act, but you were hired as a business or from the business or as a brand. So that's something
Exactly.
that I hope our listeners take from this. So, Josanne, you have been terrific. Is there anything you would like to say at this point? And maybe I didn't ask, or you would like the world to know? Um, you could go forward.
I just want to know when Piako opening. But I mean, I would say it's been a great journey. I am proud of myself for where, the journey I have taken and where I've come. I would say that, I worked hard. Nothing was just easy.
All right.
I did not come from a well-off family.
Right.
Um, but everything was made possible. And you see, I mentioned good karma earlier on.
Yes.
Not necessarily good karma from things I did, but good karma from my parents. My parents, I words cannot explain. I know it sounds cliche, but sometimes I look back at, and I'm like, why am I getting emotional? Okay, I understand why. But anyway,
Yeah.
sometimes I look back at my childhood and growing up and the opportunities that I had and things that I engaged in. And looking back at our economic situation, I'm like, but how how did I get there? How was I able to experience it? And that was literally the true sacrifice of my parents. And I am ever so grateful to have been blessed with the parents that I have. I would not change them for anything. I would not, I don't even want to go back and relive my life with money. I don't want that. Like
Wow.
the experience that I had with my family, my parents, is the experience that I needed to have. It is what got me here. And I'm
Yeah.
extremely, extremely grateful for their love, their support. Not once did they ever ask me why I wanted to study music or try to make me do something else.
Yeah.
They've always been supportive, and I am eternally grateful for them. I owe them every accomplishment that that I've had and will have in the future.
It's good to hear when you bring forward the spiritual side of your success and identifying sometimes when things weren't the best, how that could have been the fuel behind you making sure. Because that's the whole thing. You're deciding that, okay, I'm going to do this, and you're making sure that you do it and become good at it. So that's excellent to hear you put honor there to your parents and to God who you worship and on all that. So great, great stuff. In closing, I really would like to hear you give your perspective. I mean, you're out in Maryland, you came from Trinidad. I'm seeing new things that's birthing itself from within the steel pan industry in terms of entrepreneurial opportunities and all that. What are you seeing happening in the future? Do you have a general idea of some things you would like to see happen for the steel pan industry coming from not just Maryland or from your own circle, but from the entire space? Where the steelpan lives.
Um, so before I left Trinidad, I had no idea like how much steel pan there actually was in the U.S. Being here, I've been living in the U.S. Oh my gosh, January will make it 13 years. Um, I've been here. I've seen steel bands in many different schools, and even though it's in so many places, it's still regarded like a novelty.
Yeah,
In so many, and then there are many places that people never seen a steel band before.
yeah,
Um, the interest is there. We have to make sure the respect is there.
wow,
And that is something I'm really, 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 really passionate about. Making sure the respect is there for the instrument and making sure that my people, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, get the recognition for bringing this instrument to the world. And also, that's why, I want to help create these opportunities for steel pan educators, because I want to make sure that the steel pan experience that students are having in this country is authentic and does justice to the art form. I've had the unfortunate experiences of seeing some steel bands also, where it was like, yeah, it kind of rubbed the art form the wrong way. But I see it blowing up. I see pan blowing up even more in this country and in the world, um, because more and more people are starting to realize that this this makes sense. Like it makes sense to have a steel band as an ensemble option in school. It makes
Yeah.
sense, and in many ways, it makes more sense than having an orchestra.
All right.
You know, in many ways, it does. Um, but I do see it blowing up. But in its blowing up, I want to ensure that it is done authentically and that our people are respected in the way that they should be and given the opportunities to engage with this educating of students with the steel plan.
Wow. That's excellent. Do we have any questions from our listeners? Any questions from Ms. Francis pertaining to what you have heard as we wait for a few minutes to see if anything pops up? Definitely, I want to say thank you. I mean, the people like you out there working, and I'm saying the word working and basically representing the instrument and the culture and all that at the highest levels. I'm definitely seeing Pan reaching places that have never reached before, and persons are being introduced to it the correct way. So congratulations on that. I know it's a lot of work. Cafe is one bit. You have a great support team there. Let's shout out the cafe family. I know the wheels, this new initiative is blowing my mind of how far the scope could actually be, and I know you on that already. I'd like to hear more about that in the future. And then Josanne, the performer. So keep playing and more or less blessing us with these sweet songs and your touch and all these fantastic things I can say. And guys, this is an entrepreneur who lives by the instrument and in different aspects. So we know it's possible and we want to follow your story and hopefully we can encourage others to do the same. So I've not seen any questions. With no further ado, thank you a million for your time. And I think the celebration of the Global Entrepreneurial Week on the conversations with the entrepreneur and the Steelpan Business Entrepreneurship Series with MusicTT, I think we are blessed to have you today.
Thank you so much, Akua, and thank you to the MusicTT team for incorporating me and having me be a part of this experience. Um, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So have a good evening and let's go.
Later.
All right, bye.